सकते हैं, देख बार बार जूम इन करेंगे तो अच्छा इन्फॉर्म नहीं होगा। हम ये कर सकते हैं कि पहले इंट्रोडक्शन में इन पे पॉइंट कर, ठीक है, इन पे पॉइंट कर और उसके बाद जब वो लोग
and Jillian Allen. Please give me a round of applause.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the tea and coffee. I'm following on from Dr. Ramachandra, my colleagues Tim Ireland and Ram Sankara. We do a triple act between the three of us. And we're talking about further aspects of the communication process. Okay, starting with a bit of advertising, we published a book about academic writing and scientific writing in Kathmandu, really for Nepali students in English. But we published it in Kathmandu, so it's cheap and easily available for a wider audience. And before I hand over to Jamie, I have 2 or 3 slides as a really general introduction about academic writing. And this is really about the key elements, and they're not different from writing an essay as a first year student. Okay, so that's the key message. It's the same skills, it's maybe at a different higher academic level, but the skills are not different. And what you need is a bit of planning. Yeah? You need a bit of planning, set a bit of time aside to write your essay, to write your paper. You need some critical thinking. Now that's not a problem. You're all students, you passed high school, you're all clever. Critical thinking is not a problem. Writing and communication, now that might be a little bit difficult, but it will need to be in English. Most academic literature, not all of it, but most academic literature is in English. If it's not your first language, it's not my first language, I'm Dutch originally, so I'm learning English as a foreign language. You might have difficulty with some of the phrases, some of the expressions. So get a native English speaker to read your final draft. And you don't have to be an academic, but just to see the English, the style, the grammar makes sense. And then time management, really important. Most student essays fail because you don't put enough time in it. Yeah? I see people smiling, so that's the same with academic papers. Dr. Navi said you need time to revisit. You write your abstract, you write the paper, you work on the paper, you rewrite the abstract, you write the introduction, you rewrite the conclusion to make sure it fits. And then lastly, it is hard work. It is sweat. Sometimes you cannot get started, you can't get motivated. So these are the really basic aspects of writing an essay. And then I wanted to say a little bit about publication ethics. So again, Dr. Navi talked about ethics in general, ethics of research. There's also some ethics related to publications. And the first one is if you submit a paper to a journal, you submit it to one paper journal only. You only submit it to another journal, it gets rejected by the first one. Okay, so that's a publication. The second one is plagiarism. So that's the second of your essays. It needs to be your work, your words. Don't copy it. Write it in your words, your style. You might use AI, Diva, I'm talking about AI policy later on. Think about authorships. There are ethics about authorships. So anybody who contributes to the paper should be an author. Okay. Now technically, if you get good input from your supervisor on your project as a student, then your supervisor should be your second or third position in the part of your analysis. If you don't ask them to contribute to the paper, if you don't ask them to read the draft, they cannot be authors. So you need to be inclusive. You need to be fair, but at the same time not include people in terms of guest authorship who have not contributed. So that's about the ethics. And then I'll say a little bit about the role of reviewers and editors. The important thing, and again, Dr. Navi said it several times, reviewers and editors are people like me, people like Navi, people like Panam, people like me. They are people who do this in their spare time, you don't get paid for it, so they've got a full-time job in the university to do research, to do teaching, to design the curriculum, and then on Sunday morning or on Friday midnight, you look at the paper as a volunteer. So make it easy for me, make it easy for the reviewer. That's the first message. Also to think about, when you write your paper, if you don't get past the reviewers, you don't get past the hurdle, no one will ever read your paper. Yeah? The editor and the reviewer. If they don't like it, you will never get published. So think about what do we know about the editor? Read a little bit about the editor. Editors are named in journals, all the details online. What kind of work are they interested in? What kind of work is the journal interested in? So if you write an article for an epidemiology journal, don't send a qualitative paper. They don't publish qualitative papers. Some medical journals don't really like systematic reviews. So if you've done a systematic review, a paper on a systematic review, make sure the journal, the editor, likes that. Okay. It's really there to uphold the standards of the journal, uphold the standards, but also of the wider disciplines, and they feel a responsibility. They don't want to publish poor papers. It's not good for them, it's not good for the journal, it's not good for the discipline. So that's their wider role. Their role is not to help you to publish your paper that is not all that good to make it better. That's not the role of the editor. And then the reviewers, they read the paper on methodological aspects, on have you covered the literature, so experts, you write that paper and you haven't published, you haven't quoted key literature, then you will not get published. So the editors, and I'm not going to read all this out, but the editors are really there like a principle of a college. They're there for the greater good, they're there to make the journal better, the discipline better. They're not there really to help individual authors. They might, but that's not their key role, and most of them are too busy. And to kind of come back to writing an abstract and why this is so important, and I think Dr. Martin didn't say that. If you are an editor, you probably only read the abstract of the paper before you decide to give it to a peer reviewer. So if I read an abstract and I think this is not good, I'm not going to send it to the reviewer. So the abstract needs to be good, needs to be informative, needs to be clear, so that the editor can make a decision whether this paper goes to reviewers. And then the editor makes the decision. So it goes out to reviewers, 2, 3, sometimes 4. Reviewers come back, and they come back with comments and a verdict on the quality of the paper. Now these are not all the same. So you send a paper out. Someone is a methodologist, someone is a topic expert, someone is a technical expert, and they read the paper slightly differently. They have different opinions on the quality of the paper. They feed it back to the editor. The editor reads their feedback and thinks, yeah, this is worked well. We might send information to the authors to improve it a little bit, to make a couple of changes, to do this and that, to make it worthwhile. Or the editor reads it and says, no, not for our paper. So after peer review, and again, Dr. Rao made it very clear, there are 3 options. Your paper gets accepted, it gets rejected, but it asks to resubmit, or it gets completely rejected. Now, I've got something like 450 papers. I've had 1 paper accepted straight away. All the other papers have been resubmitted, rewritten, sometimes minor things, sometimes major changes in the analysis, major changes in the writing or in the discussion, but it's always extra work. So if you're lucky, you can ask to resubmit, and that's good news. That's not bad news. Okay, so if you get your paper and it says, sorry, this is not to the standard we are looking for, but you're invited to resubmit, that's really good. That's a positive thing. Okay. And if it gets rejected, sometimes it gets rejected just simply because it's the wrong journal. Or many years ago, 15 years ago, we wrote a lovely paper on children and smoking. We sent it to the British Medical Journal, and they said no. They just didn't like it, they had reviewed it, and then 4 weeks later they published 3 other papers on children and smoking. So they already had those papers, they just didn't want another paper on that topic. And just to finish off this little section, we write a lot of papers about aspects of academic writing. So we wrote a paper about how to apply to reviewers. It's really available online with some of our colleagues at Bond University. And I'll hand over to Jerry, who's going to say a little bit about the dealing with rejection from editors.
I'm going to share some lived experience of rejection, because of course I also had rejections, nobody likes it. And so I'm coming to you from a place of compassion and solidarity that you probably all experience the same. And by the end of my short presentation, I hope that I'll demonstrate that it's still, because I'm still submitting papers, that I'll demonstrate to you that it is possible to deal with rejection. So, as Edward said, most papers have to be resubmitted. The very best advice I ever had from a lecturer was, you have to write it, you will have to rewrite it, so first write it. Sometimes that's the hardest thing, is to actually write your first draft. And you wouldn't think of your first draft as a failure if you've built on it later, so don't think of your first rejection as a failure. The only failure is not carrying on and resubmitting. So you can see it as a positive decision. They've seen your paper, they think everybody's grandmother stage was actually when you take it to your grandmother and she says, "You're wonderful, they'd be lucky to have you." If you can find somebody who says that and another person who says, "But you have to work hard at it," that would be good. As David said, peer reviewers don't get paid, but they're interested in developing their profession and adding to the body of knowledge of the particular area of interest. It's very important to know that you are selling it, they're reading it for the very first time, so it needs to flow, and you need to tell the story. It's a very human attribute to want to be told the story. You don't want to have to work it out. I think I've had a rejection where my first reaction was, "Well, you didn't read it properly," because that's not what I said, you know. But you get over yourself and realise that you have to rewrite it. Basically, don't give up. There will be a delay, often quite a long delay, between you getting that paper off your hands and off your mind and the peer reviewers getting back to the journal. And sometimes it's longer than... We get a deadline as a peer reviewer, but sometimes you miss it because other work comes in. So when you get your paper back to work on again, you might have mentally sort of finished with it, and it takes a little while to get the wheels turning again, to be interested again in that subject enough to rewrite. This slide was by Edwin. Edwin actually had 2 papers rejected in the same day, in the same week. But I think we can turn that around and say, he submitted 2 papers in a week. You know, that's pretty good. So you can recover from that. And then the 2 colleagues here wrote a paper in which they forgot to cite their own article, and that was maybe a little embarrassing, but still nice to know they're humble, and also nice to know that the peer reviewer recognised their work as needing to be included. These mistakes, they don't reach the final paper, so we can just help them out in that. So try to be familiar with the journal you're going to publish in and cite some words from it. Remember that you could have written a really brilliant essay, and your lecturer says this could be potentially be published. And it is a really brilliant essay if it's got that mark, but it's not a really brilliant article yet, because an article is a different form. So you will need to dissect your essay, rework on it, and look at the guide in the journal, keep it in line with the way they present the work. You might get some comments about the structure, for example, that your lecturer hasn't found that fault with your essay, because your essay is a different thing. So don't take that to heart. And you may need to go back and do some different statistics, that's a challenge if the maths isn't your strong point. You might need to get someone to help with that. And sometimes when you're a peer reviewer, you don't see the other peer reviewers' comments at all. In some journals, not all ever, but in others you might see them when the paper's being accepted. When you've published a few papers, it is a good thing if you are invited to be a peer reviewer to do it. Although you don't get any, you do actually learn quite a lot from what other peer reviewers say, and by critiquing others, you become a better writer yourself. Yes, and as I said, good journals are hard to publish in. And it's not, if you don't get the article into the journal of your choice, there are other formats and other types of journal you can try for. Just keep trying, because it will be, hopefully, your hard work will be rewarded in the end. Yes, I'll let you read that story for yourself. And if very good practice to write quite a detailed cover letter outlining exactly. Thank you for that comment. I've carried out a different statistical analysis, or I hope I've made this clearer. Number those comments so that they can go back to the paper very easily and check that you've done that. Make their lives easy. Here's the cover letter, make it personal, and just do everything you can to make it their life easier. You've done the hard work, so show them you've done the hard work. I had one experience as a peer reviewer where I made some suggestions, and I don't expect necessarily that all the suggestions are right. I don't know everything, and another peer reviewer might have made different suggestions. So I wasn't expecting everything to be done my way, but the author wrote back quite an angry response, and that was a point I was going to make. When you get that rejection, you might have a range of emotions. You might feel ashamed, angry, I just don't have time, I don't like this subject anymore. All those feelings are real, and you just have those feelings. Put it in process the feelings, and then write a cover letter. Because if you write an angry cover letter, I mean, it won't kill me. When I read it, and the editor said, would you be willing to review the third submission? And I just, because you haven't made any of the changes. It wasn't really about the rudeness, but you haven't made any of the changes, so I don't think I'm not the right person to review your paper. So that's the only time I ever said we have, because we do enjoy doing it. Oh, sorry, I just got one more story. I'm a midwife by profession, and if you haven't had children yet, this paper is a bit like a baby. You don't want to criticise it. It's kept you awake at night. You've been very interested in it, and you put your heart and soul into it. The one time that I had a rejection outright, was the case study that I was actually very closely involved in care, and it was very difficult to take that rejection. And it's recently, as is my introduction earlier, said I'm interested in the experience of fathers in childbirth. We've neglected fathers for quite a long time, and now we're quite interested in fatherhood. But I asked the father, how was it for you being with your wife during quite a difficult day? And he said, it was the worst day of my life until it was the best day of my life. And in terms of this paper, it's not such a struggling, but when you don't have any babies, this paper wasn't a baby. And so I had the outright rejection, and I thought about it for a while, and came across a paper saying that journals they have a positive bias. They like to publish things that are telling what good thing you've done. And my paper was about we could have cared for the person better. And so I wrote to the editor and I said, I found this paper. I wonder if you could consider that your journal, the readers might benefit from reading something where practitioners have not done a good job, because that happens. We don't always need to read how wonderful everyone is. Sometimes we need to read that we don't always do the best job. And he was a new editor, and he said, oh yeah, absolutely. So it was the first paper that was ever rejected outright, and then the first paper that was ever accepted without any corrections. So that can happen.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, everyone. We heard a lot about different tips on how to write the paper, how to deal with the rejection. So usually the first question when the student do some work or the colleagues do some work, the first question is, where do I submit my paper? How do you select the best journal so that chance of acceptance is high? what should be the criteria? What you looked to select the journal? Let's start with the one example. I just want to listen to your thoughts. So you did a fantastic study in Mauritius, looking at the physical activities among young people in Mauritius. You developed a new methodology by using the AI-enhanced technology. It's a very new innovative method. It's a looking at the young people in Mauritius around physical activities. You got the interesting finding, you got a big sample, you did all the scientific process, you got a good paper. What do you submit that paper? What things you consider when you submitted the paper? What factor you consider to the paper? Well, I'll go to nature because it's a very high impact journal, and because it's published, it changed my whole career, whole life. Do you go there? So sometimes, the point here is sometimes you need to, when we see the paper, one paper could go to the different ways. So what is your key message on that paper is very important. Three things I mentioned here. You did the study among young people. So any journal that publishes related to young people, sometimes they publish drug use among young people, sometimes they publish about the sexual health among young people, sometimes they publish, so any journal related to adolescents, young people, could be your possible journal. Think that way now. Okay, my study is among young people, so I should go to the journal that focus on the young people. But you don't need to restrict that one. What you did is that you also use the innovative method. You use the AI in research is very new things. You develop the new method, you validate the new question. So there's a lot of methodological finding itself. Forget about other finding from your research. So your paper could go to the methodological journal, or even in the both. You can write the methodological way, highlighting the methodological aspect of your paper, that could go to the methodological paper, which publish the methodological on any age group. So that's other things. So other one is you did the study on physical activities. So there's so many paper that focuses on physical activities of older people, young people, a child, and other things. So the question, the point here is that the one study can go to a different type of paper. So what is your key message on the paper that Professor Ravi mentioned this morning? So what is the storyline of that paper that will determine? So I just want to give some example of the how to select. So I won't take a long time. I will just focus a few slides in terms of how do you select the best paper for your research and how to select the topics. It's just a few tips on this one. So the first things I would advise for the student, and then there are people, your supervisor or your colleagues who has published on similar topics, talk to them. As a tea time, as other things. Okay, I did this study, which are only things. Sometimes the advice from the friend is quite important. And it saves you a lot of time, you don't need to do the things. Other thing is whether the similar topics is published. And then sometimes, one of my professor told me that when you prepare the manuscript, read all the reference. So if you cited a particular journal more than any other, that means you have a similar reader of that journal. So for example, if you publish a paper and you cite any topics in the BMC Sport Science, for example, and then, okay, that journal I cited so many times that they have a similar reader. So you might consider thinking for that journal, for that article. So see your reference first. So how many reference you cited, and is there any reference which you cited again and again and again? And that's the possible area of looking at one. And also we need to, as I said, we need to consider for the impact factor. You need to be realistic, how good that study is, how big that study is, whether it's a randomized control trial, whether it's a groundbreaking study, or whether there's a more sort of survey or epidemiological study. And based on this one, impact factor, I'm sure you are aware, it's how that good paper is that has a several implications. Look that one. And these days, the other challenge is not all the journals are good. Even some journals are fake. So how do we identify whether that's a genuine journal or not? And see whether that journal will index And also some university, for example, our university and many universities these days encourage to publish in open access journal because it's a wider reader. If it's open access, people more likely to read that journal because they don't need to pay for that. People who write the paper pay for this publication, but the reader will get the free. So these are some of the things you need to consider. So the other thing is the chapter specific. That's something is very important. Is the chapter something what is required, what to include on the journal. I don't know whether you have seen this Gen website. It's a very useful website, and a lot of people and we use that several times. This website, if you put the title of your paper on this website, there is a link. It's a free access, and then that will give you the potential journal for your paper. So you can give either the title of the paper or the study of area that you did. And for our interest, the area, and when we did that, we put this the one study looking at it's a qualitative study of interviewing the path perspective in rural Nepal. That's the title we gave. And this website, again, this is the AI as well. It suggested that the accident analysis and prevention is a well-lined index journal is the potential number one potential journal for this paper. Because that journal has a published similar type of article on that journal. The second recommendation is BMC pregnancy and childbirth. The third is a traffic injury prevention. You can see that. The second is because we put that Nepal as a word, and there's so many publications related to that one. International Journal of Injury Control, you can see that. The study is about carpets. So it's recommended. So this is not the final decision. You need to check that. As you mentioned earlier, some journals are very focused on quantitative, very epidemiological. If it's qualitative, they may not publish. Some journals are, the requirement is different. So it's an author instruction is very good. It's just one way of selecting the idea. So, I mean, this is the things we discussed since this morning. So you need to select first your charter journal, and then you need to look at and who is most likely to publish that particular paper. And then very important, and one of the common mistakes in all academics do is we don't read the instruction again and again. This is very important, and some journal is very, so that if you don't follow the instruction, they just reject it straight away. They think that, oh, you are not careful person, you don't follow the instruction. So they don't even question about the finding of the research. So this is quite important. And the basic things like the length, style, British English, American English, referencing style, Harvard, the Vancouver style, what type of style they want. And then the easy way is that if you decided to publish in one journal, look the journal, another article of the same journal. That will give you a better idea as well. And then again, so you did a long study, and then so you look at several aspects in one study. If you try to publish everything in one paper, it's very difficult. And there is always we debate about the slicing of the research. So sometimes there's a debate. I did this study, I looked at the young people behavior, for example. You look at smoking behavior, you look at physical activities, and do I need to publish both in the same paper? Or can I publish in the two different journals? It's the same study. So you look at both in your questionnaire, not questionnaire, you have demographic information, then you ask the question related to the physical activities, and then later you ask the question related to smoking behavior, you ask the question related to the drinking behavior. Can we publish 3 papers out of it? Or because it's one study, we need to publish just 1 paper? What do you think? Who think that we can publish up to 3 papers or up to 5 papers? You think we can publish? So who think that it's a one study, you cannot publish more than 1 paper, otherwise it will be it will not be fair or it's not fair. The message is, yeah, you can publish. There's a very interesting article. There's a one study in US. They published 63 papers from one study. So they publish protocol, they publish the different aspect within that. What you cannot do is, in the survey that I give you example, you have 1,000 sample, you cannot publish the finding from 500 in one paper and finding from another 500 from another paper. That's not allowed. You cannot do that because it will not make you enough sample, it's not ethical, it's not scientific. But what you can do is, if it's a bigger study, from the PhD student work, it's a one PhD, they publish several papers. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you use the innovative method, whatever regards, you can publish one paper in methodology, and you can publish the typical word length of the article is about 3,000 words, and you need all sections. You need introduction, and the rationale, and you need method, you need a finding, you need discussion, you need conclusion, recommendation. So if you try to cover everything, that's not possible. So you can easily write the, okay, in the study, you can publish just the smoking behavior in one paper. You can say that smoking behavior among young people in Mauritius. You can say the drinking behavior of Mauritius, and you can acknowledge that. So this study is a part of the bigger studies. The alcohol use is reported in the different paper, X paper, and this paper is focused on the smoking behavior or the physical activity behavior. If you acknowledge and make that clear, that's fine. So the thing is that don't include everything in one paper. So this is also another scientific or clever way of presenting your sort of finding. And then the other thing is to check whether it's been listed on some of the reputable database like Scoopers. And don't always rely on the Google Scholar, and sometimes that pick up so many other things. The other one is also that we discussed that the author instruction is very important on this one. And then I just want to find out how to write the title. Just for the so you select the journal and just one or two tips about how to write a great title. There's so many literature, so many advice on writing the title. But the people always we start the title at the beginning, but the recommendation, a lot of literature and my own experience that you write the title at the end. That's happened in my PhD as well. I started PhD and I have a thesis ready to submit. I gave to the draft and I had a discussion with the supervisor. And at the end, that my actual thesis does not reflect on the original title. And then I changed the title on the submission. It's not major changes, it won't change anything. But so the message is sometimes writing the title at the end of the paper is a good idea. So it's always, and then there's a few tips on the writing the title. So don't make it a sort of funny, don't make it a sort of, it should reflect what you want to say on that message. So the basic rule is that there's three things. If the title gives the study context, where the study is taken place, if the title can give the method, what method you use, not all the title can reflect that one, and then so on the topics. So what topics it's about, as I mentioned, so physical activities or the drinking behavior among young people in Mauritius of quantitative survey. If you get that one, that has the Mauritius studies conducted in Mauritius, it's a quantitative survey, it's a physical activity among young population. So you give the topics, you give the study population, you give the context and method. Try to be simple. Don't try to repeat some of this example. You can see that under this there is a nice title, but you can see that the social word is used 4 times. Sometimes it's so think about those sort of minor things in terms of the when you construct your title. Sometimes if you just pick up the keyword of your thesis and then ask, nowadays we'll have session later on today that probably sometimes the ChatGPT can advise you the right title as well. So we will see what we can get from them later on. So I think this is the most sort of the constructing title. There is a lot of literature about those ones, and then you can sort of see those literature and get the advice. And then the other thing, the 2 things I want to share. in the academic writing, in my experience, is whatever session, how many sessions you attended like this one, you do the 20 different training, 300 different workshops. If you don't start yourself, you cannot write. Do it today. Do it start up. It's like learning the cycling or learning the swimming. Whatever lesson you learn, whatever the YouTube video you watch, whatever the lesson you go to learn how to, theoretical session you go on swimming, until and unless you don't go to the swimming pool and a river and don't start swimming, you don't learn. You never ever learn. It's exactly the same. That's that you or we need to start. Whatever. As in the morning session, there's so many things we can write. Sometimes people think that, I haven't done a research, I didn't have any data to write. No, we all learn. Once you go to the school, you go enough data. You have your experience, you have the work, and then you study in the classroom. And there's so many. It's not the scientific or the peer review paper you need to write. It could be a case study, it could be your reflection on the being a medical student on here. There's so many ways of writing. And once you start writing in any form of writing, that helps you, that motivates you. And that's the important thing. So you need to start. So we usually say that tomorrow never comes. If you say that I'll do it tomorrow, it's never happened. And then you think that, I need to be an active researcher to write the paper. It never happened. Nobody in this room is a top researcher. We all are running, we all are researchers. And then the second point, I think that to take away message that's writing or the academic work is the teamwork. It's not like academic work, it's not like writing a novel or writing the individual piece of work. I know it's different in a different discipline. Some social scientists, anthropologists, sometimes they write with the mono-author, single author. But in the field of health, medical science, public health, it's always, I think I publish around 250 papers now. I don't think I got any single paper. I think 1 or 2 papers I wrote as an editorial or the note. That's my single author. All the paper I co-author with other. So it's a teamwork. The message here is a teamwork. Because you write something, you share with the colleagues. Oh, I think that is something we can write. And even in our chatting when we listen to the Professor Ravi's session, that's something we haven't written in our book. I think we should cover that. And then make a note of this one, share with your colleagues. And in the same as in the research, nobody is perfect for everything. One is good on data analysis, one is good on qualitative writing, one is good on editing the English, another colleague is good on. They should contribute. As you mentioned earlier, there is a rule for being a author. If you make this criteria, work on the team, and then it's a win-win situation for everyone. I think I will stop here, and then I will come back to you later on with the use of artificial intelligence and academic writing. I'll hand it over to Edwin again. Thank you.
Thank you. A few final slides to finish off. We're overrunning a little bit late, but our excuses, we started later. So in terms of writing, we've got really good advice on the different kind of sections that I talked about, but also writing sections. So don't write the paper from start to finish. Write the methods, and then write the conclusion, and then write the introduction, or the other way around. It doesn't matter. You write in sections. It makes it much more easier. I write without thinking, so I'm not worried about grammar and style and language, because that's editing. In my head, writing and editing are 2 different jobs. I do the writing, and then it's poor English, and I do the editing, and then someone else does the editing. Okay, so make it two jobs. And I write something, and I write, for example, the smoking percentage of teenagers in Mauritius is 17.3%. I'm not actually sure. I write reference, I go and find the reference later, but I keep writing. Because if I go away and find the reference, and by the time I come back, I have no idea what I was writing about. Okay, so I keep in the flow of writing. And then the other thing is, get other people to read your draft. Again, Dr. Ravi said, Param said it, it is someone else's view, someone else's perspective. Sometimes you get wonderful ideas in your head, on paper, they're not quite that wonderful. You know, you wake up, you have a wonderful dream, you try to explain it, and you can't. So the reader can only read what's on the paper, they can't know what's in your head. So let someone else read the writing. Writing is a process. I always carry a notebook with me. Little ideas that you might have, just add them. You can do it on your phone, and if you're young and more than you do it on your phone, add it to a paper notebook. Things you might think, okay, this is a really interesting argument. I don't think it's fit mine, but let's think about it. Maybe I can use it later, or maybe I can refute it, or maybe I can do something with it. Maybe I can use it for a recommendation. I'm a sociologist, by the way, I'm not a clinician, so I do a lot of work in health and healthcare, but I cannot make recommendations for doctors or midwives because it's not my job. I really don't know if it makes sense. So I've done a study on midwifery and women's views, and then I write recommendations, so I need advice from someone else. Writing is a process. I didn't put any quotes in any of those slides that we've used, but I really like this. Think about writing as thinking. Not I write, I know what I'm doing and I write it. No, I'm writing. And that's a process of thinking, of structuring something in your head to get it on paper. So writing is a process. When you thought you knew it, when you try to write it down, you realize you didn't quite know it. And then finish off with proofreading. So if all goes well, you get accepted by the journal, and they send you the proofs, all the paper proofs. Read those. Read those really, really well, because programs that kind of put something in the format for the journal, or in the more traditional style journals that have a text editor, someone might have changed the word or changed something in the text without you realizing. So I read it with a ruler, so I read the words, not the sentence, I read the words in the sentence. It's a little paper in the Midwifery Practitioners Journal, a lovely paper written by myself and Jenny. I came to be, I proofread it, but I didn't get that bit in the middle, because the editor did that. And Jenny should have been the first author, I should be the second author. They changed it out because I did the communications, but Jenny had done most of the work. So there's an element of just read every single word in your proofs. Some journals give you advice. So this is BBC Pregnancy and Childbirth. The BBC is a publisher from Springer, a big international publisher. They give you advice on how to prove it, what to think about it. So check your surnames. Really, it's really difficult. For the Pali college, you can names like Abikari, you can spell with an I or a Y. You can have Dutch names like Fontaine. If you do it well, the Van should have a capital. These are little difficult things for automate the text and also for edit. So it gives you advice on to do that. And we also put in some references. I'm very happy for my students to get copies of the slides, so you might be able to do something with the references. Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, so we need a question from a student. So there's no movement until we have a question from a student. Are you a student? No.
In collaborative research, how many authors' names are accepted usually? Is there any?
That's a very good question. I was on a panel for the UK research on quality research in the British universities, and the paper with the most authors was 240. Now, you can't convince me that any of those authors were more than 10 and written any of it. And it was a genetic paper, they all had contributed genetic data from across the world to the paper. In 12 authors, no one asks a question. If you do a big project, you've got a doctor, a nurse, you've got a statistician, a sociologist, a psychologist, a health service researcher. Before you go to the 8, 9 people who worked on the project and worked on it together. But it should not be more than the people who worked on the paper. That is really important. It's not the people who worked on the research, it's people who worked on the paper. So you must have contributed at least that and code on the paper.
Thank you.
Hello, wait, it's still your student. You work up here.
Select the name. We'll call it.
Are you a student?
In terms of the motivation you're talking about, especially on the rejection aspect and how do you come forward afterwards, how does one in the medical field, especially writing papers, I know we're discussing writing one paper, but how do you continue writing more than one paper? Some of us have 300 papers written down. How do you continue finding new ideas and new sections? And also just a very small one is, do you change any of the previous papers?
I think it's ethical to you'd have to have some significant change in it to be a new paper. How you keep going? I actually asked a journalist, a friend of mine, I said that I've been writing papers for 10 years now and I find it really difficult, laborious. Sometimes you lose heart, you think, well, is anyone else interested in this? And she said, I said, do you love writing? Because it's your job. And she said, it's always a love-hate relationship. And the love comes when you've got the copy in your hand. Exactly. So I think that, even though it's hard work doing it, getting it published is the bit that gets you interested in writing the next paper. So you will experience that. When you experience that, you'll know.
Thank you so much. Can we have another round of applause for Okay, we'll move on to session 3, our artificial intelligence in academic writing. I'd like to call upon Adam Sinkada and Biha Sinkada, please.
Thank you for the, it's a continuous. So how much time do we have? How much time? I can do it. It's a AI. It can be in 1 minute, it can be in 1 day. So originally it's half an hour, right? Okay. Hopefully you should be fine on this one. I know this AI is a new thing, although it's a very new thing, but it jumped to us so quickly. You know, there's the, do you know the, when there's the Uber or the, when there's the, I mean, the new program come up, it takes few years to take this one. And that this AI, when it comes to the market, is one of the most rapid expanding subject in the world. So in the class here, how many of you use the ChatGPT in your day-to-day life? Almost everyone. So it's very easy for us. You don't need to go for this one. So, okay, that's fine. Thank you. We all use that in the day-to-day life. Few years ago, in the November, when the ChatGPT first announced in 2022 November, it was very new to everyone. So it's a learning area. So what we want to cover in the next 20 minutes is just to share our the experience on using AI in academic writing. The important thing is just to cover you what's AI. You all know that, so I will go. And then looking at some of the key important AI tools for academic writing. And then how to use AI in academic writing and what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. It's so much changing. Things that I share you now could be be a world and outdated when we go for lunch. It's changing that quickly. So our university, when we published the student handbook in September in UK, academic year start in September, we published the student handbook in September. In November, ChatGPT started. Students start using before we know that, before university know that. And then the university challenged to the university said that, oh, you can't do that. And the student challenged to us and that, no, you haven't put your handbook because we don't know that. We find out we are before you. So it's such a rapid changing areas. And then the mainly, the main things we want to focus in the next 20 minutes is some of the challenges, some of the ethical issues, some of the questions we need to ask ourselves about this one. So those are the areas that we want to focus here. And some of the reflection, and Diva will do the later part of the reflection on this presentation. So we all are learning. I'm learning definitely. So I should admit that I'm not an IT technician or I'm not a computer person. So I'm a public health researcher, global health researcher, and I'm not the expert on this. So we all are learning. The story began with again coming with the colleagues with Edwin, and then one of his son is also the IT experts. We sat for coffee, we discussed, and we generated idea, and with Viva, and then we wrote the ChatGPT was new, and we wrote the article about some of the challenge because we review the so many paper, and then we are the editor of several journals, and then so it's very hard really whether that is written by the ChatGPT or whether it's an individual work, and so we reflect that our experience on that journal and publish that, and later on with the Nepal Journal of Epidemiology, number of colleagues are here. We wrote the editorial about some of the ethical issues of using AI on day-to-day life. That's how this presentation is a setup for this talk. So, as I said, I don't want to go to the detail of what is the artificial intelligence and then different definition. The first definition is actually given by the AI itself. So I asked the ChatGPT what's the AI most commonly used definition. They give the two definitions. One is the definition by the European Union, that's the most widely accepted definition, and other one is usually when you look at the definition, it's Oxford Dictionary definition. And that's the dictionary. So basically what AI is I know that many of you, I'm sure about that, it's based on the most of it collect the information what is available in the world and synthesis that in a very short time and respond to your question. And then it's more about the collecting those information. And a lot of people are worried about the whether AI will replace the people's job or not, whether it will be it damage the society. There is always two school of thought. Even in the UK university, there is one group of people that the AI or AI-related content should be a part of the curriculum in any discipline. Or some say, no, we shouldn't. We should go to the traditional mode of the teaching learning. And same thing happening in the journal thing. So I will come back later on. Some journals are now very sort of open on using AI in academic writing. Some journals are not. So, and then how to deal with this is the one of the major challenge. So within the AI, artificial intelligence, the commonly used the things that we talk about, the Google Scholar is also AI, sometimes people don't realize. And then when we do the translation, that's also done by through the AI. They all are the generative AI. So what the generative AI is? Generative AI is an artificial intelligence tool that allows these users to ask the question or make the question and receive the quick written response. It's based on the large language model LLMs, and it analyzes the different type of data on this one. So in academia, there are several AI. So if there's more than 100 different AI people use these days on the different disciplines. So they are the different disciplines. So today we will focus mainly the commonly used, most commonly used and recently developed is the ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, as you know, the ChatGPT is a generative pre-trained transfer known as GPT, and this is a two version, one freely available version. Anybody can sign in and use it, and there's a paid version where you get the more sort of and more advanced facilities. Some institutions start to subscribe to one. The other one is called Copilot. Our university recently approved using the Copilot. Now we as a staff we can use that as a license. It's managed from the Microsoft, and then one of the advantages of Copilot is that it's controlled by Microsoft. That's why it's a more sort of the data security point of view. It's a more easy, more secure in a sense. But ChatGPT is also Copilot is also based on the ChatGPT function. So what the Copilot use the ChatGPT function, but the Copilot manage all the data. So if you are doing the research and if you have sensitive data and if you put that on ChatGPT, then it could go anywhere. Anybody can access that. That's one of the major issues on this one. There are several ones. This is just a few examples. Like you can create the music, you can make a video with the AI these days, and there are different types of AI. And then the commonly one, as I said, is the ChatGPT. So when you do the ChatGPT, so majority of you are already using the ChatGPT. That's why I don't want to go. And then the prompt is so important. What the prompt is how you ask the question, how you phrase the question. So that will give you it's such an interesting. And then I don't know whether we can run some of the function here. Let's just see how accurate you can see that. Categorize yourself the reflection. How accurate is that from 1 to 10? 10 is very accurate and 1 is not accurate. 9. He has published this one. So interestingly, he has done a lot of work and then it has become so many things. The work in Nepal. That's quite interesting. He did a lot of work in Nepal. policies. Let's ask the further. I'm not talking here is a problem. I ask him. So if you want to get the further information about him, we can prompt that. That applies to the academic writing as well. We'll come back to that later on. So you can, I mean, even if it's quite interesting that it's another sort of good practice. And then interesting thing is that when you reading the student assignment or other things, you will find out whether the student use the ChatGPT or not. There is certain action, certain keyword that ChatGPT tends to use on its writing. So it's just one example of the things. You can write last time I tried what is the NCD problem in Mauritius? It gives the real, and then I did a few articles, it gives the two articles. So this is just an example that I want to highlight here. Let's go back to the slide. Okay, so AI in academic writing, AI it's really revolutionize the academic writing, offering the tools for research, drafting, editing, and feedback. And it give so it's also help you to check the grammar, plagiarism, and it really help the so many things. So among the tools that I mentioned, there are a few AI tools that's commonly used, as I mentioned, ChatGPT. Grammarly is also the AI tool, it's a different version. The Jotero you mentioned this morning, it's also help for scientists, that's also the AI tool we use in academia. Qcode, I saw people use that. It's a AI driven paraphrasing. Not every student whose English is not first language use this one, and then if you write something and if you ask that to rephrase that, it helps. And then the research drafting is another AI. It's also freely available certain person, and it helps the literature review. It's summarize that, even find out to turn over literature review. This is just an example. There are many others. So why this become more sort of beneficial? It's a very efficient. It will give you the answer immediately, and then we give the most of the time. We just tested about the description of everything, and a few of it's a really precise estimation of the accurate information, and also it helps to access a lot of resources which we don't have access or we don't know, and also it also helps to give the personalized advice in many areas. So, and then this very interesting video article on this one I refer here is published in Computer Method and Programming journal, and they did a 24 article talking about AI in academic writing, and so that there is 6 domains that AI can help for academic writing. We are talking about 6 domains. What are those domains? It's mainly the idea generation. It could help you. So if you are not sure what the topics that you want to explore on NCT or any other problem, if you have a prompt chat and then if you put a question, then you might get those ideas. And then it also helps with the structure of the content. It helps on writing. It helps on the literature synthesis. It also helps on the data management. It helps on editing. And also it helps in terms of the making it a more sort of ethical compliance in many ways. So this article, you can see that this is the 6 clear domain on this area. And so on those, I mentioned those 24 papers, and the guy nicely reviewed that. I'm sorry, it's not clear. But the message here, what I want to highlight here is that so if you look at the 3 sections, it has a lot of use. The section on so these are the current practice that people use. So although AI can help in the 6th domain, those domain I mentioned highlighted here, among those domains, the most common people use on drafting the paper, that's commonly used, people use on editing. They use those areas, and among those 24 people that identify that these are some of the common areas people use the AI. But although there's a lot of opportunity, at the same time there's a lot of challenge, and it has a lot of limitation. So sometimes people, depending on the AI, and the people are more worried that people lost the creativity, people lost the other things. So there is a risk of depending too much on AI, reducing the critical thinking and creativity. That's the one of the major challenge at the moment in academia. So everything is done by AI, you don't think critically, you don't think the issues. And then AI is also there's a potential bias. Especially, sometimes they might access a type of literature in one side and give the completely different conclusion, complete biased conclusion. So you need to have a clear the control, whatever whether you use or not. And then there is a ethical concerns about we say that if anybody contributes on the academic writing, they should be author. The ChatGPT is creating a lot of contribution. Do you put that as a co-author? How many of you agree that ChatGPT also should be a co-author? Because it helps all the 6 domains of the academic writing, from idea generation to the editing. Yes? Yes? 2 hand, 3 hand, 4 hand, 5, 6, 7, plus something, 8, good. So, ChatGPT should be a first author. Should be a first author. Okay, so we will discuss that. Today, I'm not going to discuss that, but who should be author and how we acknowledge that. Okay, and then also the learning curve. And then some people are good on IT, might do other things, and then the people who are not good on IT, and there's a set of challenges. Also, there are so many pieces of this one. As I said, information may be false. What we found when we did the paper, we asked them to write some disease pattern in Mauritius or Nepal, and with a reference, they gave the reference, that reference never exists. So usually, sometimes be careful when you use this, especially student. I know in UK, 92% of the students use the ChatGPT to give helpful assignment. Almost everybody uses it. So it's very common, but how to use properly is a more question. Whether people use or not is not a question. Everybody uses that. If they know it, they use it. But how to use properly is the main question. And then information, don't rely completely on that. Especially when you ask for the reference, sometimes it gives the false reference. And citation and proof may be completely changed on this. And then the response may contain bias, as I mentioned earlier. The risk of violating academic integrity and standard, that's also the pitfalls. And then sometimes it might access the private information, image, and so on, which is unethical, not allowed. And idea may be changed, which is not your fault. It's completely giving you think in one way around, and that give you a thought as well. Because ChatGPT don't know you, and then that gives you based on the prompt. So this article I would recommend you to read. It's a danger of AI assisted academic writing, and they put this. There's a link there, and they claim the team claim that it is unauthentic source. They use the key issues because one of the dangers they highlighted is it could be an unauthentic source, and then you should control. Basically, you should control that one, and there is always chances of data leakage. Once you I put the weight Edwin on the ChatGPT, I don't know who has that information. It gives the information about Edwin. We don't know who can leak those ones because there's a data. So if you have very sensitive data on the drug development, some research, and the person information, and there is the data leakage is a big challenge, and there is always challenge for ethical and other restriction issues. So mainly the one of the major discussion at the moment on using AI and academic writing is ethical issues. Ethical use of AI is the main issues. Ethical use of AI in medical field, which I'll be talking tomorrow. And then it's more about the academic integrity, ensure that AI is used to enhance, not to replace the original part. So this is very important. So you need to be a thinker. You need to be the idea generator. And then the AI should be your helper, not you as a helper for AI. That's important. And then the lot of journals now say that no, AI should not be a co-author. So I will tell you why we discuss that. Because it could do a mistake. And of course, women can do the mistake, but we need to acknowledge that. And also you need to be transparent on being using the AI. So there is a lot of trouble now have a guideline on how to report the AI use. That we have some example here. We will share that with you. So these are the academic integrity issues, authorship issues, and transparency issues are important. Sometimes when the student, we detect that the student use the AI to do the assignment, at first we student, because AI, so if you use the ChatGPT, if you have the same question, if I have to visit admin, second time it gives a completely different answer. It won't repeat the same answer. It will slightly twist the things, it won't be the same thing. So it won't give you the same answer again and again. Every time it gives a new answer. So it's very hard to tackle the duplication. But what so the transparency of this issue is quite important. So some other considerations that we need to take. The ChatGPT, for example, the free version can access the data 3 years or 1 year. So if something came out this year, it won't capture. But if it's a paid version, it will. And it's not the substitute of original content. It's always helping you. And then always I advise you that take the precaution on the affiliation. Sometimes it just make other things. So especially on referencing number and those sort of things. It's a check the affiliation. So what there's so many unknown on the eye where they are here, what happened in a 5 years time, 10 years time. But a lot of the people working on this will think that it will advance the writing systems. AI will become a tool for offering the deeper insight and writing style and structure. And there's a lot of trouble now piloting to use because there's one of the challenges for peer review at the moment is getting the report. So when you submit the article and you won't get the response, and if you contact with the editor, they say that, oh, we haven't got a peer reviewer, or oh, this is the peer reviewer. So it's sometimes that's one of the major bottleneck on publication process, because usually peer review process is the free process. The user didn't pay the money for the peer reviewer. And it takes time, we discussed from the morning. But the lot of journals are now highlighting that whether the AI could be a peer reviewer. So, and then there's a few exercises going on, giving the paper for the three renowned scientists and give the same paper to the AI and see whether they have the same comment or not. Usually, it doesn't need to be the same comment. Even if we send the paper to the two reviewers, sometimes one accept, one reject, one say that, oh, it's a good paper, other says it's a rubbish paper. So it's not necessary. So the people are looking, trying. And I think, I'm saying in the near future, not far, I think probably the journal will start peer review using the AI. And then also it's already started as a collaborative tool. It definitely helps. And also it also helps the personalized learning. And it has been used in quite a lot in medical field, but also now used in terms of the personal teaching learning field. if you input the information about particular student background, particular student other characteristics, and it helps to design the lesson plan or whatever you requires. So basically, in conclusion, AI is a powerful tool that, when used ethically, and can greatly enhance the academic writing. In balance, AI as a partner in the writing process, not as a replacement for critical thinking. I think this is the thing, although it's not AI, it won't have intelligence, it's all collecting information around the world, nothing but it won't have that critical thinking. It could enhance the research, but there's a lot of challenge as well if you don't use it critically. So this is some of the things. I think I would like to, because we were going to read that, there are some questions which probably some of them we know, some of them we don't know, and then we were going to so how do we really got
At this certain time, we have a lot of work, but we have established and social media. I think we should speed up a few things. And I won't go too long, just to make a back. Yeah. I think when Dan spoke about it, everybody looks like everybody using ChatGPT or some kind of AI tools to help in everyday life. And there are a number of people are debating whether it is good or whether it is bad. We are relying too much on this one. And that's why we need to think as academics, we need to think about how we use it and when we use it as well. And we can use everyday life, but I use everyday life as well. But not as a writing a paper, but sometimes I just use just constructing the half of the sentence, something like that. And we can see that there are a number of papers that are debating which discipline should use this AI tools as well. And when we are talking about the academic writing, especially I come as a senior lecturer in nursing, my student we identified a number of students use the ChatGPT, Quillbook, those things. And that's why we discussed whether it is a good idea. But a university in the UK, I think they are starting to adopt it. And the journal we see, they have a declaration things and whether, and it raises a number of questions. And whether should journal allow us to use AI? Whether, how do you feel in that room? What do you think? Should the journal allow us to use AI tools to help our paper?
so probably that's the answer, I think, yeah. So if you have any comments on this question to be useful, I think there's one particular audience there.
I have a question and I have a scenario. May I have 1.5 minutes time? Okay, so here is a scenario. A professor like me will become a lazy guy now because ChatGPT asked to construct a question on streptococcus. So ChatGPT gives me a question. Please make a question to understand, to test the pathogenesis of streptococcus infection in children. So ChatGPT makes a question. I post a question, 5 minutes. I get 100 replies from all of you. Chat generated answer to that question.
Okay, I'm further lazier than what you are.
So I say, ChatGPT, please assess all these questions and tell me whether they are right or wrong.
And now ChatGPT says,
All right.
practically what has happened is,
Transmission of information has occurred between ChatGPT
and your
answer sheet through my
question will passing through the mind of either of us. Are we heading our academics in that direction? You get answers to questions. You can't get thoughts put into your mind through ChatGPT. That's my question about use of I actually don't like this word artificial intelligence, because intelligence cannot be artificial. Intelligence has to be original. Artificial is something which is not original. These days we have got soaps which have got original lime and drinks which have got flavored lime. Artificial. So are we heading in that direction? We need to really think, should we call it artificial intelligence at all, or should we call it only as additional information? Let's change the term. If you call it intelligence, that means you are submissive to that particular. And who's going to question? Oh, I got it from ChatGPT. You all can question me. Are you aware of more things that ChatGPT is giving? Because every moment it's changing, it's upgrading. I learned about Streptococcus maybe about 30 years ago, and maybe revised 1 year ago or 6 months ago before putting the question. ChatGPT has got last minute updates. So you can question me. Are you more intelligent or ChatGPT is more? Are we going to face these problems? How academicians and as doctors are we going to address them? Thank you.
So there's one German policy. So nowadays, you are focusing the paper. Most of the German now with the policy challenges they are used. So I will also recommend, in addition to the author instruction, there is a section on the policy. And additionally, interestingly, the Union Journal of Medicine, which is a very highly respected, highly regarded journal, they are giving some level of acceptance on using AI academic writing, or only to improve your reality and clearly find the message, not to generally write, not drafting the paper. So this is the instruction of this one. And then short journal, the instruction, so how to this is just an example from the one of the journal. They say that if you are taking a help from the AI, it's accepted, but there is a statement that we need to produce. That's the thing that I mean, the transparency is the author of this manuscript. This is actually copy and paste from the published journal. So the what is it? The author of this manuscript declared in the writing process of this work, no AI or AI assisted technology were used to generate content and their theories. We utilize AI solely for the purpose of enhancing the readability and defining the language. So most journals nowadays accept that content of the writing. So and then these are some of the reference that you can look at. So how to use, what to use, what is the limitation. As I said, last year the position of the journal about the AI use and this year is slightly different. I think, in the next year when we have another conference, probably it will be the different position. So some journals still is quite restricted and highly recommend not to use the ChatGPT or any other AI. Some journals say that you can use, but you need to disclose that. So that's the position at the moment. So I think thank you. Thank you for that. So on behalf of myself and our co-author, we edited the book. We want to provide that to this medical school on behalf of there's no chapter on ChatGPT. When we wrote that, it wasn't ChatGPT. So hopefully next edition will come with the one chapter on this one. I will put that to the sir and the library. Thank you.
Thank you for Senator, please.
Good morning. First of all, it's a great honor to be here today. Well, it's such a good honor to meet people who've been working for a very quite long time, and now we just have to continue. Well, my name is Israel, but I'm not from Israel, I'm from Brazil. My name is a little bit tricky. First thing we need to do, Air France and Air Mauritius destroyed all of my languages, so whoever I see staring at me with suits and sneakers, we know that in my country, okay? So, well, I hope tomorrow they all dry out. Well, thank you for the organization, for inviting me to give this challenge and talk about meta-analysis and how to, master the process involved into meta-analysis, creation, interpretation, and reporting. It's extremely challenging. And just a quick question. So, who here is a medical student? From you, well, most of you. So, which one of you likes statistics? No. So you might hate me at this moment because, I'm probably the only person who's going to really talk about statistics the whole time. So just to take off the context of my presentation. Well, first of all, you may know that what is a systematic review and meta-analysis. But you need to be very sure that this is not our standing point. Whenever you read a paper, well, whenever I read a paper that states this is a meta-analysis, I'm already flagging that as a red flag. Because what people usually do, they basically skip all of these central and critical phases related to the development of systematic, high-caliber systematic reviews and meta-analysis, and they just go to the data extraction, data analysis, and perform the publication. So I think one of the greatest things, and my role here today, is to really aware you that this is not the starting point. We need to come from a process that is really, that really relates to a development, a long-term development of a research project. And it may be for your thesis, I don't know, well, in my country, medical students, it's not mandatory for them to have a final thesis, but I know there are countries around the world that this is critical. So it may be part of your project, and if it's not, it may come to you, towards you in the future and in the months during that PhD. But be aware that we need to be sure that we master also these skills. So what is a meta-analysis then? So after obtaining the data that is relevant for a systematic review in any sort of research questions, we cluster and we merge similar results to similar results. In Brazil, we have a saying that we do not mix rice and beans, which we do. We eat rice and beans together, but we mix them. But just for giving you an idea that we cluster similar with similar, and by similar I mean similar results with similar results, and then we have an overall finding related to these results. It's a type of, I don't want to use this word because it can be a little bit misleading, but let's say it's a mean, like a median value, but it's not a mean. I never told you it's a mean or a median, okay? It's just to give it like a summarization of the idea. And why is a meta-analysis so important these days? So, the body of literature has been increasing over the last number of years dramatically. Every day around 20,000 papers are published elsewhere, and the criticisms, the doubts, the questions that might emerge from these papers are realistic, are real. And sometimes one paper can say, okay, this intervention might be appropriate for this treatment, and another publication might say totally controversial statement. And this is where a meta-analysis and systematic reviews come to a point of extremely importance in epidemiology and public health. And of course, meta-analysis help to identify trends, measure consistencies and resolve uncertainties, and well, it's been widely used in the healthcare system for guideline development or any other policy development process. So first thing first, when should we do a systematic review with the meta-analysis? So we should target few criteria to perform this analysis, and the most important one, we need to cluster, we need to merge studies that have the same intervention in a systematic way. Let's say that Dr. Sylvia and I have been working with antenatal ultrasound, and we are trying to analyze the patterns of craniofacial abnormalities observed in these antenatal ultrasounds. And in one of our latest publications, one reviewer said, well, you guys should perform a meta-analysis because the results for this particular outcome might be suitable and whatever. And this is part of the previous presenter we're talking about. Sometimes it's the reviewers, they might not know very well what they're talking about. Just to be there to go on. And you need to be sure that you merge similar with similar, equal to equal. And of course, we need to specify a target outcome that might be appropriate to perform the meta-analysis, to participate in the merging process. And of course, when the existing data is displayed and reported similarly. Let's say that we are working with, hemoglobin levels. If in Brazil we report hemoglobin in a certain unit, and in America they report in a totally different unit, that it does not actually have a direct value based on one to another criteria, we are not allowed to do this final statistical assessment because we are comparing something different with something different. And when we should not, so it's totally the opposite from the other slides. When the heterogeneity is remarkable with included studies, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a few. When participants deliver interventions and the outcomes are different among included studies. And of course, when the employed methods are different among included studies, such as in terms of randomization, concealment, and I hope we have time to talk about this aspect a little bit. So what are the main aspects and the main methodological stages related to performing a meta-analysis? We're going to be talking briefly about all of this. So first thing, we need to be sure that we know what are the competitors that we are utilizing in our research project. In today's class, we're going to be talking about, I prepared a random research question for us, which is imagine that we're investigating the interventions for daytime sleepiness. Time, for example, I see a lot of on. I hope I'm not that boring. Well, what time is it? I'm still in Paris time. I came from Paris, and it's a little bit early in Paris, but don't sleep, drink some water. It's very depressing for us. So let's say that we're investigating daytime feeling of sleepiness, tiredness. So let's say that we are selecting for comparisons studies that evaluate caffeinated coffee versus decaffeinated coffee, caffeinated coffee versus placebo, or caffeinated caps in a formulation of capsules versus a random tea. So you need to know what you're studying in specific to see what are the probabilities of what type of studies you can potentially find using a search strategy. So, as the previous speakers said, in this area, evidence-based medicine, we do not work alone. So try to partner with specialists, try to partner with people who really know about the topic you're proposing in order to really identify all the potential different competitors in your research. So let's stick to these examples and others. And at the same time, in order to perform a meta-analysis, you need to all use similar outcomes. What we're actually analyzing in our project. I didn't want to select a continuous variable for this presentation. I selected a numeric dichotomous continuous variable. But let's say that all of these interventions, they've been promising positive results in terms of reducing the sleeping sensation during daylight. But one of the adverse events from the uptake of these interventions might be related to the episode of headache. And by doing this, I'm calling your attention to one thing. A lot of researchers, they do not understand that not only the intervention, the target outcome is important for us to understand in our research project, but we need to be sure that we're trying to cover also adverse events. That's very rare to find in current systematic reviews and meta-analysis, and we need to be aware that interventions, they also have a negative response, a negative outcome, a negative in terms of our intervention. So in our case, we're going to use episodes of headache. Okay. So I'm not going to talk a lot about this slide, but it's important. Is there any librarian here? Yes, you? No, in the audience. So as a physician, I know that so many times we forget about they exist. And they are so talented and experienced in dealing with databases. So try to get them to your group, try to merge them, try to embrace them into your team, because they're extremely important for you to obtain the specific documents and trials or observational trials that you're trying to analyze. So don't forget about them. They study for 5 years, at least in Brazil. They study for 5 years just to really master this phase of your project. So just identifying the librarian here at the university and trying to coordinate them. And then it's important for you to know how, well, this is the boring part, and I know everybody's hungry, so am I. Actually, I'm anxious to try and Mauritius. How do you call a person from Mauritius? That's, you can say, oh, he's American. I'm not American. Nobody smile, nobody knows. Americans, they don't know geography, make now more history, okay? But trying to understand that these similarities in terms of the variable that we're analyzing, they really matter in terms of what analysis I'm going to undertake from the data that I have. I'm not going to really talk about all of these, it's just to let you know that they do exist. Sometimes when you're in classes in medical school, we just like, oh, this professor's going to talk a lot about this again. I have no idea what he's talking about. Well, I don't want to be that professor today. But they do exist. So after understanding these variables, today we're gonna focus on two important types of variables. One is the concept of risk. And I really wish I would have the list of names so I could call someone to just let me know what's risk and odds. But risk relates to, well, I'm going to read because it's important to read, so we don't have to use concept. So risk regards the concept more familiar to patients and healthcare professionals and describes the probability with which the healthy factor will occur. So let's say in our potentially trial, we have 6 people among 24 who develop headache after taking the intervention that we're going to have. So the risk the probability for a person to develop a headache from our data set is 6 people over 24, which goes to 25%. So whenever you see a risk, the idea of a risk, you're gonna think about the percentage. On the other hand, whenever you see the word odds, you're gonna think about chance. And I know, well, in my native language, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. But in English, apparently it does. And odds, for example, regards to the probability of a you do not report that outcome that you report. In this case, 18. Okay? Which stands for maybe you're gonna say, well, Professor Indrajit, I don't know what to call it. We usually have the event, or if you're studying an intervention, it's actually where the intervention goes to. So in the vertical columns it's always presented with the outcomes you're focusing on. And here in the horizontal lines, we always use for the comparators that we have. And every time you see a 4-to-4 table, you're gonna count A, B, C, D. So it's like A, B, C, D. Okay? So if you want to calculate the relative risk, the odds ratio, and the risk difference, well, I'm not going to be forcing you to understand these concepts and to really memorize them, because at any time you can sponsor a book, a textbook, but trying to learn the main meanings of these calculations. Whenever we have a risk, a relative risk equals 1, similar to 1, there's not really difference in terms of the interventions that we are going. If we see a relative risk greater than 1, we have a deleterious effect, or in other words, a negative effect of the comparison between the interventions. And whenever we see a relative ratio lower than 1, we have a protective effect. So in this example, we have that the consumption of, well, we do not have the confidence interval here, and that's for purpose, so for you just to understand. So the relative risk for people who take caffeinated coffee versus decaffeinated coffee is 70. So among those individuals, 79% of the patients who take the caffeinated coffee had a higher risk to really develop this particular outcome, which is headache. On the other hand, when we talk about odds ratio, which is the chance, the probability for the person to develop that particular outcome, it's similar, but it's not. So when the odds ratio is greater than 1, we say that for this particular outcome, the patient have a lower chance for the event to happen. When it's equal to 1, there's not really difference. When it's lower than 1, there's a higher chance to develop the event. And the relative, the risk difference, it's constant. So, one important aspect, how many minutes do I have? Jesus, I'm really late. So whenever you're working in a systematic review and a meta-analysis, you need to be aware that data extraction is critical, and it must be among at least 2 independent reviewers in order to decrease the number of natural errors related to the inclusion of studies. So this is a type of table, how you can organize your data in Excel, or there are multiple softwares that you can actually use. And the WHO, I worked with the WHO, I forgot to mention that. At the WHO, we have a software that is called Covenants. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. It's the most, I'm not doing marketing for free, but it's one of the best softwares that we have on market right now to perform meta-analysis and systematic reviews. The management of evidence-based studies, evidence-based medicine studies. And this is a type of, if you're doing it in Excel, this is a type of observation. So, and this is getting even worse because I haven't really talked about the real statistics behind behind it, but we need to select for a type of model, of statistical model, that we are going to implement in our data, in our analysis. And for model, we have two different options. One is the fixed effect model, which is more conservative and relates to a more precise estimate, and it considers the variability among included studies. It is presented with a lower 95 confidence interval, 95% confidence interval. It usually ignores the heterogeneity, the existing heterogeneity among included studies, and it might not be applicable to all populations. So the selection of this model to the other one, which is totally the opposite, it really regards your experience as a clinician, as a healthcare professional, as a researcher, to really understand if the sample that I'm including at the end with my paper, it's really consistent, it's really equal. For example, I'm coordinating a master's student in Brazil now, he's working with HIV and the association with HIV after physical activity. And I've been telling him that at the beginning of this project, he was merging patients who were already with AIDS with those patients with HIV positive but were under control. And he was making a real mess with all of this data, and I was like, well, hold on a second, we really need to know what we're doing. And we need to be aware that comparing patients with AIDS and HIV is not the same. It might not be the whole picture. So be aware that the population to use the first model needs to be equal enough. This is just a representation of this, of the principle that we just talked, and how we obtain the data, how we report the obtained data. So after, I can come here to talk 2 hours about how to program. Who likes R here? Who knows how to use R? You're probably a professor. So there's multiple ways that we can program. We can use Python, R to obtain our results, but it would be useless for you now. There are multiple YouTube videos that you can really learn how to perform meta-analysis using R, Revenant Web. There are multiple tools. But once you have the results, you need to, it's called forest plot. That those graphs that we're going to be working right now, it's called forest plots, which is really the forest of plots, or different plots, but in this case are mathematic modeling results. And now I'm almost done. We're going to be talking about the legal characteristics behind the forest plot. First, for each line represents one study. And one study and the outcome that we are looking for. In this case, we are still investigating interventions for Lyme sickness, reporting happening up to 24 hours on intake. So each study, each line that you see here is the study that we included in our systematic review. These are the events. So this is the number of events and the total among the caffeinated group, and then the number of events and the total in the decaffeinated group. We have the total number of participants. In this case, we had 277 decaffeinated group, and then in the decaffeinated group, we have 290. And then each study has an effect in terms of weight. How this study is contributing to the overall summary of effects. And the final diamond, as you can see here, the final diamond regards the central effect that better represents the real magnitude of effect. And what does it mean? If the intervention or the groups that we're analyzing, they differ with each other, and if there's a difference in terms of a positive effect or a negative effect. And then each study, there's a representation within the forest plots. Each square represents the size of each study, and the size usually, the lower the variance, which is related to the 95% confidence interval, the largest is the study weight. And usually, the bigger the sample size, the larger the study weight. So the more patients this particular study is contributing to the final statistics, the bigger it's going to be the bigger square involved. And then we have the concept of the 95% interval, which, well, when I was a medical student, I never really understood this. I still don't. So if you find, I don't, the end of my PhD, and I still don't. I've heard so many different definitions of 95% confidence interval, but this is the one that mostly makes sense to in my head, which relates to the amplitude of values, which is a range of different values or random values that it can be obtained through a sample size, through a sampling process that we're reasonably sure to be obtained in our real estimates, because we need to be aware that what we are obtaining in our statistics is not the real result, because we're not enrolling patients from all around the world with all the different singularities and peculiarities that they might have. So it's just an estimation. It's just to be learned. This is the concept that most makes sense. And then, of course, we have the final results in terms of the magnitude of the effect. In this case, we had 33% favoring the decaffeinated group. So the relative risk, the risk of patients to develop headache, the decaffeinated group seems to be a little higher than to the only caffeine group. But we're going to be seeing just right now that this is not significant statistics. And why? Because whenever the diamond crosses the new line, which is the line of regarding the number 1, whenever the diamond is crossing that particular line, there's not statistical difference among the study groups, the groups. And I'm almost at the end. Now we're going to be talking very quickly about how to explore the differences in between studies. How many minutes? 5 minutes? 4? Okay. These are mandatory. Well, this is not mandatory, but it's like whenever you see a meta-analysis, really performing those statistics, these people may know what they're talking about. And we're going to start with heterogeneity. Heterogeneity is a term to describe the differences between the studies and observed results among the studies, and how we actually try to understand these differences. We can try to perform a visual inspection. Well, in this case, it's very clear for us that this group is really heterogeneous in terms of the effects, but it might not be that easy to observe through inspection. But in daily practice, what we mostly use as a determinant of heterogeneity is an I2 value. And the Cochrane handbook, which if you have never read the Cochrane handbook, you're missing a lot. So I highly advise you to go to cochrane.com.org and try to download it for free. I'm doing marketing for free again. But try to understand the important criteria related to this specific performance metric. And whenever you have a I2 value from 0 to 40, the heterogeneity cannot be that relevant, and then it goes on into a considerable heterogeneity. Another way to explore the estimates that you're obtaining in your product regards to the sensitivity analysis, which is the real impact, which is the analysis of the impact of some methodological characteristics that are really encompassed with your analysis. It's inherent with your meta-analysis assessment. And if the later results, the results that were performed after the sensitivity analysis are the same with the ones that, are the same or quite similar to the ones that we primarily observed in your assessment, it's a good signal that the primary analysis is really representing the whole picture of the village. And on the other hand, we can perform subgroup analysis based on particular characteristics that we may consider as an important modulator of the effect. For example, in the project that I'm supervising this master's student, I said, well, let's try to understand that if older studies published during the HIV pandemic, they really make an impact in particular outcomes such as CD4 count and CD8 count. And his results is very preliminary, but it shows that older studies represents a larger effect size for sensible reasons. And lastly, another thing that we need to be aware is the assessment of publication bias. And I just came from Prague. There was, I don't know if you're aware, but last week in Prague, they held the Global Evidence Summit, where all of the big charts and evidence summary, evidence synthesis were presented. And a very shocking result said, a very shocking presentation, I was really shocked with this result, said that more than 80% of the publications in evidence-based medicine, they do not perform a publication bias assessment. This is scary at a certain limit, because the publication process of systematic reviews and meta-analysis became so popular over the last couple of years, and to know that people are not really following this, main guidelines for developing this type of studies is worrisome. And what does publication bias mean? We need to understand that negative results in research are usually not published, and we need to try to evaluate the lack of studies showing negative results or results that are unexpected. If there's really a difference in terms of the integration of these results in our study, and how we basically observe like the symmetry in this funnel plot. And in this case, for example, we can observe there's a publication bias because there's more studies condensed in this area. So, lastly, it's important for you, I'm not going to be talking widely about this, but you need to go to places where you can see, you can check this data information that you may need when writing your report. And all of the information that is important to be contained in a paper, in a final manuscript that you're working and drafting, it's all in the Christmas statement. Whenever you have a question, if necessary to do a meta-analysis, just go back and try to understand. If you're reporting all the mandatory aspects that a high-quality meta-analysis and systematic review should include. So this is just a preparation of the meta-analysis. You have, of course, like all the different types of studies. Observational studies is the same. You have an introduction of a methodology, which you describe in our example, research strategy, inclusion criteria, in the data transfer process, how you perform the statistical analysis, and so on. And then the result of discussion, and so forth. So just key messages for you. Trying to collaborate with statisticians, because I'm a cardiologist. I'm not there to perform any statistics by myself, because I know where I'm not good and where I'm good at. We need to know what steps are critical, and of course we are involved in the extraction process. But I highly suggest you to involve a statistician, because they know what they're doing, and sometimes something that we spend like 2 days to calculate a random value, they do in like 30 seconds. So you have patients to save, you have patients to see, try to see patients. Don't try to be like working with IT as an IT specialist, because we've never do the same as we do. And yeah, so ensure the transparency and reproducibility when you're doing your final drafting. And yeah, that's it. You know, I know the my presentations, the less interesting one, but I'm very happy to take questions if I can answer them. Thank you. If you don't have questions, I'm gonna take the list. Because you know what? This is something I could never learn when I was an academic student. So if you don't have questions, because either you're Einstein or I talk like motion. Not really, that's so well, they can teach me how to do this.
Not really a question, more of a statement. When I was a postgrad student, I did have students, and I did mention the negative effect of my corporation.
Was it Africa? No. Okay, good things I can try to practice my French from Paris. That's not really working. But no, the negative results are, you know, are not really welcome across the different journals, across different editors. And I have a feeling, well, whenever I can report the negative result, which is unexpected from the whole literature reporting, you know, if the journal is not really, well, first, did you receive any peer review comments?
I did.
Did they ask to remove that part of the paper or not?
They asked me to restructure it.
Well, you know what they're asking you. Well, when they ask restructure, it's remove something that we don't like. It may be something that we don't like. And we got the result. But I try to be transparent and coherent. So whenever I have a negative result, I prefer to state, okay, this is extremely unexpected. I was not expecting to have the result, but I'm reporting as a way to guarantee that English surgery are being a systematic way, not cherry picking results. That's my perspective.
Thank you, Dr. Israel. We'd like to call upon Dr. Spain to please have a certificates to our speaker. I'd also like to call upon Dr. AC.
Broadcasting is not looking good on YouTube. You have to keep the whole frame.
If we lose the internet already, they don't give us the password. See, only 2 people are watching.
Don't zoom on it like that. Let it the whole thing. Stop zooming and stop moving and just let it. Just
See, it's looking in this different, and can you please open? See the difference, can you see? It's looking different in both the devices.
Is the
See,
number of
look
orders
at the
don't zoom.
And lastly, Dr. Israel Jr.
So it's now been